Alright, good morning class and welcome to week 6. We're going to talk now about verse, meter and rhythm, the metrical forms of English poetry, or the kinds of metrical foot in English. Can you hear me, class?
Yes, doctor.
Yes, doctor.
Alright, so this class can be called or titled Metrical Forms of English Poetry, or alternatively kinds of metrical foot in English. Metrical forms, metrical foot. Let's begin with a quick definition of verse. Verse is generally distinguished from prose as a more compressed and more regularly rhythmic form of statement. More compressed and more regularly rhythmic form of a statement. So rhythmic, musical. Hopkins defines verse as a speech wholly or partially repeating the same figure of sound, the rhythmic beats. There are two types, or we may divide verse into metrical verse and a free verse. Metrical verse can also be called, or might be called, as accentual syllabic verse. So verse can be divided into two types. Versification can be divided into two types: metrical verse and a free verse. What is metrical verse? Metrical verse is verse in which the line's length is measured by counting syllables in pairs or triplets. The syllables can be counted in pairs depending on the meter, or as triplets or in triplets. And so the syllables in the line matter in metrical verse. This is not the same case when it comes to non-metrical verse. Non-metrical verse known as a free verse. So the line is not an issue, the length of the line is not an issue. That's why in free verse you can see some lines very long, some lines very short, because you do not have the same number of syllables. If you look, for example, very quickly, if you look on page 216, you find an example of free verse. So you can see the different lengths of lines. They sing unceasing to the notes of my immortal hand. This is one line. The next, the solemn silent moon. Very short compared to the first line. And so crucial to metrical verse is the number of syllables, the notion of syllable, and we shall see also the notion of stress. Metrical verse is verse in which the line's length is measured by counting syllables in pairs or triplets, depending on the type of meter. Okay. Free verse, on the other hand, is non-metrical verse. There is not any special principle to determine how the text is divided into lines. That's why you see some lines very long and some lines very short. In order to understand English meter, it is first necessary to understand the two aspects of English words that are controlled by meters. And these are syllables and stress. And so there is no way to understand meter without first understanding the notions of syllable and stress, the relative stress on syllables. And so metricality involves or depends on two aspects, the syllable and the stress. The syllable and the stress. So actually, before any discussion of the metrical forms of English poetry or the kinds of metrical foot in English, there is a need first to introduce and discuss the notions of the syllable and the stress. I remember in a previous class we did talk about the syllable, but I'm not sure if I talked about the stress in that class. Did I talk about the stress? Let me see. There is a lot to say, but maybe I have to skip some portions of the discussion so that we can come to the discussion of meter and the forms of English, the kinds of metrical foot in English. But as I said, before we get into this discussion, we have to be familiar with the notions of syllable and stress. Syllables and stress. What is syllable? What is a syllable? Let's take 3 words as an example. Look at these 3 words. Sharmila, can you quickly read them?
Photograph, photographer, and photographic, for
Really?
example.
Really? Okay. Do they sound the same, Sharmila, when spoken? When written, they look
They're quite similar.
quite similar in spelling. But what about speaking?
No, they're not.
There is a big no here. No, they sound different. Because one syllable in each word is stressed, meaning stronger than the others. The reason why they sound different, because one syllable is stressed. Words are composed. Okay, let me pronounce them before we go on. So the first one is photograph, photographer, photographic. Again, photograph, photographer, photographic. Do they sound the same?
No.
Sharmila? Photograph, photographer, photographic. So in the first word, the stressed syllable is the first one. Pho. In the second word, it is 1, 2, the second. Photographer. Photograph, photographer, and the third one, the third. Photographic. Graphic. Words are composed of one or more syllables. Each word contains one or more syllables. Book has, for example, 1 syllable. Before has 2 syllables. Be and for. Cinema has 3 syllables. Si-na-ma. Education has 4 syllables. Ed-u-ke-shin. Mambani or Ambabani, also 4 syllables. Am-ba-ba-ni. You can count on your hands or just by tapping the desk. Has 4 syllables each. Communication, unreality, philosophical have 5 syllables each. For example, count with me. You can count. Kam, you, ni, ke, shin. 5 syllables. Unreality. Un, re, A-la-ti. 5 syllables. And the same thing goes with philosophical. Onomatopoeic or abecedarian or encyclopedia has 6 syllables each. O, count, o, na, ma, ta, pi, yik. 6. How many?
6.
Abecedarian. Abecedarian. 6 syllables. Environmentalism has 7 syllables. Environmentalism or autobiographical each has 7 syllables. You can count them. Anti-disestablishmentarianism has over 10 syllables. Over 10 syllables. Anti-disestablishmentarianism. And in the word ultramicroscopic silicovolcanoconiosis, maybe there are about 20 syllables. So words are made up of syllables. Can be 1 monosyllabic, 2 bisyllabic, 3 trisyllabic, or polysyllabic, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, etc., etc. And so on and so forth. Some words have alternative numbers of syllables depending on whether certain vowels are compressed or not. If you look at this word, Shamila, how do you pronounce this word? Quickly.
Which word? Maddening.
How many syllables?
Maddening. Maddening. 3.
The way you have it pronounced it, yes, there are 3 syllables. You said maddening, maddening. But it can also be pronounced in such a way as to make it 2 syllables. A feature known as compression. You compress the syllables, you shorten them to make them 2 in this case. So maddening can be maddening, maddening. Instead of maddening, maddening. The same thing goes with, for example, dialect. It can be 3 syllables, dialect, or 2 syllables, dialect. Dialect. Instead of dialect, dialect. Compressing the syllables and so making them, in this case, 2. The same thing goes with Wednesday versus Wednesday. Literature versus literature. Personally, my pronunciation features usually the compressed version. Generally. So I instead of saying maddening, maddening. Literature, literature. Medicine, medicine. Medicine, medicine. 3 syllables. I compress it into medicine, medicine. So there are then certain words, they can have alternative numbers of syllables. I say library. What do you say? Maybe you say library. Library. 3 syllables. I say library. Library. 2 syllables. February. January, February. February. 2 syllables. Maybe you pronounce it as February. 4 syllables. February. February. So 4 syllables, I compress them into 2. February. So depending on whether you apply compression or not, certain words can have an alternative number of syllables. Okay, Zach? Zach, there is a lot. I know I won't be able to say what I want to say. and I shouldn't, expiate on every, or sorry, expatiate. Maybe this is a new word for some of you. I shouldn't expatiate or elaborate on everything. Expatiate, a formal word meaning elaborate, to expatiate, expatiation. He expatiated on divorce, on American politics. Okay, move on. So let's now define the syllable based on what we have said. A syllable is then a phonological unit composed of one or more phonemes, sounds. A syllable is divided into three parts. We talked about this in an earlier class, so I will just go through it quickly. Every syllable has a nucleus, and that's like the heart of the syllable, without which you cannot have a syllable, which is usually a vowel, but as we have seen previously, it can also be as a consonant, known as a syllabic consonant. It's usually a vowel, but some syllables are made up of a consonant, a type of consonant we call syllabic consonant, such as liquids or nasals, syllabic liquids or nasals, because these types of sounds have vocalic quality. In addition to the consonantal quality, they also have vocalic quality. They are pronounced like vowels. In the sense that air flow, sounds are made through the air. As the air gets out of the lung, sounds are produced. So vowels are produced without any obstruction of the air. If you say a, e, u, I, vowels are produced without any blockage or blockade or obstruction of the air flow. But consonants are obstructed. Say pa. You see what happens to your lips? They are brought together, blocking the air. Say da. Your tongues your tongue, the tip of your tongue hits the ceiling, blocking the air. So some consonants have vocalic quality, like the ra, r. The air flows through the sides of your tongue. The air is not completely blocked. If you say la, la, or ma, ma, okay, your oral cavity is closed, but the nasal cavity is open, so air passes through the nose, the nasal cavity. I don't want to get into more details about consonants and the difference between consonants and vowels. This leads us to this way we cannot finish what we want to finish. So syllables have three parts. They have a nucleus, which is a must, and the nucleus is usually a vowel, but it can be a syllabic consonant. The nucleus may be preceded, before it you may have one or two sounds, phonemes, or known as called as the onset. And the nucleus can also be followed by one or two sounds known as the coda. And so a syllable has a hierarchical structure, beginning with the nucleus, and then to the nucleus you can have either an onset, a sound or two at the beginning before it, or a coda after it. As I have said, a syllable can be based on vowel-like consonant, the syllabic consonant we have mentioned, known as a syllabic consonant, such as la, or na, or ra, or ma, so that a two-syllable word like bottle actually has its second syllable. The second syllable, you have bot, one syllable, but the second syllable As you can see, the nucleus in the second syllable is la. Forget about the E. The E is not pronounced here. It's not pronounced. So bottle based on L, which is a nasal consonant, a nasal sound. The same applies to the first syllable in the capital of Swaziland. The So the here is a syllable. Babani, there are 4 syllables. Ba ni, 4. The first syllable, the nucleus is a syllabic consonant. It is not a vowel, but it is acting as a vowel because you say say the air flows. Okay. Or because we have given you the example of babani. Okay, what's next, guys? Now, having talked about the syllable, what is word stress? And notice I am saying word stress because we have also another type of stress, sentence stress, the accent, the prosodic accent stress. So let's first talk about word stress, having introduced the notion of the syllable. And we have said that if a word is made up of more than one syllable, because we've said that some words are monosyllabic, car, door, man, here, come, sweet, all these are monosyllabic, one syllable. There is no problem with monosyllabic words because they are said to be stressed anyhow. Car, door, man. But words are made up of more than one syllable, 2, 3, 4, 5. One of these syllables must be stressed. Now, which syllable is stressed? Which syllable to stress? Unfortunately, in English, there is no pattern. Which syllable to stress? Because English is a free stress language, not fixed stress language. There are 2 types of languages when it comes to the placement of the stress. Some languages are fixed stress, meaning they have all the stressed syllables in one position. For example, the second syllable in all the words in this language or that language is stressed, or the third, or the penultimate syllable. In English is a free stress language, meaning there is in one word you could for example, in a 2-syllable word, you could have in one the first stressed, in another the second. For example, Japan, how many syllables? 2. China, how many syllables? 2. But okay, let's look at the stress pattern in each of these 2-syllabic words, the bisyllabic words. In China, which syllable is stressed? The first or second? China, the first. In Japan, the second. And so there is no window first, hotel second. And so in English, unfortunately, much to the trouble of English language learners, not native speakers, because native speakers hear the language spoken around, and they just, like children, they acquire it the way they hear it. But for you and me, stress is an issue because English does not place stress on a fixed, position. And so you have to learn the stress along with the pronunciation of each word individually. You have either to hear the word from a native speaker or someone whose English you trust, or rely on the dictionary. Learn how to use these phonetic symbols and the stress symbol and apply. Otherwise, you're going to make many mistakes concerning stress in English. And I have heard you, Malay, making, placing the stress, wrongly on a number of words. For example, English, native speakers of English say faculty, meaning they stress the first syllable, faculty. But most of you say faculty, culty. You stress the second syllable. Native speakers say specific, stressing the second syllable. But most of you say specific, misplacing the stress on the first syllable. What is word stress? When a word has two or more syllables, one of them has the main stress. All monosyllabic words, meaning one syllable, produced in isolation, meaning not in a sentence, are said to be stressed. In isolation, because we have another type of stress, sentence stress, and this is important to verse. Alone, they are stressed, car, doll, man. But when they come as part of a sentence, they might not be stressed. To create the rhythm, the rhythm needed not only for verse, but for everyday speech. The beats that make the musicality in speech, even in casual conversational speech. And this becomes, of course, more prominent in verse because it is counted and measured and meant to be rhythmic and musical, metrical verse. So all monosyllabic words produced in isolation are said to be stressed. For example, these are not the examples I meant. So examples I said: car, window. Car, man, love. So these are monosyllabic words. Now then this list has words that are not monosyllabic. These are polysyllabic words. Polysyllabic words having more than one syllable. Accent, 2 syllables. Which one is stressed? Quickly. Accent. The first. Prefer, 2 syllables. Which one is stressed?
Okay.
The second. Just tell me the first or second or third. Education. How many syllables? Education. 4. Which one is stressed? Education. The third. The K. Necessary. How many syllables? Again, necessary would depend on whether you can press certain syllables or not. According to my pronunciation, necessary, which means that there are necessary, 3 syllables, but you might pronounce it as 4 syllables. Necessary. The kids are crying and this is driving me crazy. Anyhow, the stress now, we're not going now to talk about the syllable anymore, just the stress. So necessary, which syllable is stressed? First. Japan.
Second.
Japanese. The third, knees. If you put the stress on the wrong syllable, it may be difficult for the listeners to understand what you're saying. For pronunciation, it is important to know which syllable has the main stress. By the way, in longer words, words that have, for example, 4 or 5 syllables, there are 2 stresses: main stress and secondary stress. For example, the word communication. The main stress falls on the penultimate syllable, the syllable before the last, on K. Communication. But the second syllable has also a stress, but secondary, less strong. The second syllable, mu. Communication. 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 So the mu is stressed and the cation is stressed, but cation is the primary stress, primary or main stress we call it, primary and secondary. So main stress known as the primary stress. Primary stress. On before, it is the second syllable. On cinema, the first syllable. Si, it is the first. And on education, K, it is the third. Education, it is the third in polysyllabic words. Try to hear the stress in words each time you listen to English, on the radio or in films, for example. Your first step is to hear and recognize it. After that, you can use it. Misplacement of word stress. I have told you that you Malays tend to say specific, for example, rather than specific. Faculty rather than faculty. Misplacing the stress by saying silently instead of silently, for example. You see, you tend to say specific instead of specific. So this is a misplacement of the stress. So you have to pay attention not only to your pronunciation, but also to the stress in words that contain more than one syllable. You've got to know which syllable receives the main stress, the second, the third, the fourth, in order to to sound like a native speaker on the one hand, and most importantly to avoid confusion or misunderstanding in certain contexts, because stress in English is contrastive. Stress in English is contrastive, meaning it can act as a sound. It can act as a different sound. It creates a different meaning. Okay, the phonetic realization of stress. Let's get into some more detail, which I should skip, but I am tempted to go through it. The physical correlates of stress. The physical correlates of stress. I mean, let's define stress more now. Okay, it looks like the sound that is pronounced, the syllable that is pronounced louder, higher. Let's define the factors that make the stressed syllable a stressed syllable, that define the stress, the physical correlates of stress. There are three correlates or physical correlates. Though we often have some sort of feeling for rhythm, strong, regular, repeated pattern of sounds, intuitions about what is or isn't a stressed syllable or a rhythmic beat. Though we often have some sort of feeling for rhythm, intuitions about what is or isn't a stress syllable or a rhythmic beat, there is no single physical correlate for stress. Stress is a composite construct deriving from measurable intensity, duration, and frequency. And so there are three things that are involved in the stress. Though we tend to have a feeling when we hear a word to say that this is the stress syllable, but to understand it better, let's look at these three aspects involved in stressing or the stress syllable. And these are intensity, duration, and the frequency. So stress can be identified by three factors: intensity or loudness, or volume. So the same meaning, whether they call it intensity or loudness. Maybe you can remember the word loudness, easier for you. Loudness. And so one physical characteristic of the stress syllable is that it is louder than the surrounding syllables. Louder. When you compare it to the surrounding syllables, it is louder. Loud versus soft. How loud the syllable seems to be in relation to surrounding syllables. The second physical correlate is the duration or length. The duration or length. Long versus short. That is how long the syllable seems to last in relation to surrounding syllables. The stressed syllable is pronounced or is said with longer duration. It takes more time in its production when compared to the other unstressed syllables. So it is louder and is longer. For example, communicate. The second syllable is stressed. Communicate. Communicate. We have how many syllables in the word communicate? Communicate. 4. The second one is the stressed one. And so, you, in terms of the loudness, it is louder. Communicate. Communicate. In terms of the duration, it is longer. It takes more time. Communicate. Communicate. Photographer. Photographer. The second syllable is stressed. So it is louder and it is longer compared to the other syllables. Photographer. 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 The third physical correlate is the pitch, frequency, or pitch. Frequency or pitch. Stressed syllables are higher. So here we talk about high versus low. The impression of pitch conveyed to the listener. The higher, the more prominent. But the changing or dynamic pitch is the most noticeable. And so the stressed syllable is higher in pitch. Higher. It is louder, longer, and higher. These are the physical correlates of stress. So now you understand stress more. We often use all three of these factors or phonetic means to stress a syllable. Also, there is a vowel color. Vowels may fully be pronounced or reduced to schwa. Vowel color Also, there is a vowel color, vowel coloring or coloring. Vowels may fully be pronounced or reduced to schwa. Well, we should talk about the schwa, but what can I talk and what should I leave? Okay, so a stressed syllable is one that carries a rhythmic beat. Photographer, photograph. It is marked by greater loudness, intensity, than unstressed syllables, and often by pitch prominence, frequency, pitch, and a greater duration, length, duration, or more clearly defined vowel qualities. The stressed syllable, the vowels are pronounced clearly. The vowel in the stressed syllable, we've said that a syllable largely contains a vowel. A syllable has a nucleus, and the nucleus is usually a vowel. In the vowel in the stressed syllable is usually pronounced clearly. If it's o, if it is a, if it is e, etc., etc. This is not the same case with the unstressed syllables, the vowels in the unstressed syllables, which usually reduce to schwa. They become like the first or last sound in America. And so the vowel in the stressed syllable is pronounced clearly. For example, photograph, fo. For example, what should I say? Okay. Communicate. But this you, if it comes in a syllable that is not stressed, in many cases it will be like a schwa, like the last sound in sofa. For example, supply. The word supply. Su. Now it is not sah, because the stressed syllable is the second. Ply. And so the u has become a schwa, like the last sound in sofa or the first in around. And so the stressed syllable, the vowel in the stressed syllable is pronounced clearly, unlike the other vowels. So a stressed syllable will be louder, higher, and longer, and so much easier to hear. Fo, oh, photograph. Photographer, photograph, graphic. This happens in all words with two or more syllables. Teacher, Japan, China, above. Conversation, say. Interesting, important. Demand. Laboratory, laboratory. Oration. Or oration, because this becomes a schwa. Oration, like the last sound in sofa. Oration, etc., 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 etc. Reduction of unstressed vowels. I have just said that the vowel in a stressed syllable is pronounced clearly, but the vowels that come in unstressed syllables are not pronounced clearly, and they are usually reduced to schwa or even deleted altogether. Schwa is a sound in English, and it's the most common sound in English. The most common sound. You cannot find in English a word made up of more than one syllable without the schwa being there. And so it's a pervasive sound. It's the most common sound in the English language. And it's problematic to many speakers, non-native speakers, especially to Arabs. The schwa is a problem to Arabs. Because Arabic pronounces vowels clearly, all vowels. The notion or the idea of reducing vowels is not there in Arabic. And so Arabs have terrible pronunciation. Syllables with very weak or no stress are often reduced in vowel quality, such that they are no longer clearly distinguishable from other vowels and may also be shortened or even deleted altogether. The syllables that are not stressed are reduced, or we call them weak, or small, or quiet, or deleted altogether. Native speakers of English listen for the stressed syllables, not the weak syllables, as they communicate. If you use word stress in your speech, you will instantly and automatically improve your pronunciation and your comprehension. Such reduction of the vowel sound is not a distinct feature of Arabic, as I have said. And we can add to this the important fact that the Arab tradition insists on very distinct articulation of every sound, clearly defined vowel quality. This has to do with the Quran, by the way. When we teach the Quran, we teach it in a way so as people reciting the Quran would recite words, enunciate words clearly. Especially when reciting, reading a text, a tradition that stems from the reading of the Quran. That is why when Arab students of English listen to native speakers of English, they get the feeling that those speakers eat up half the sounds of the language, as the saying goes. For them, the native speakers eat up half of the words. You cannot hear them, because native speech focuses only on the stressed syllable. The others are weak, are almost unheard. Develop. What's this word? Develop. Va. What here is va, but the first and last syllable are almost inaudible. Develop. Develop. Va. Lab. Develop. So we've said that most sounds most syllables that are not stressed, the vowels in these syllables are reduced to schwa. Let's talk more about the schwa. Let's talk more about the schwa. I elaborate as though I have 10 hours. The schwa is the weak vowel sound in an unstressed syllable and is pronounced like the first and last sounds in the word America. How do you say America? Say America. The first and last sounds, the pronunciation of the first and last sound is like that of the schwa. Or the first in a round. Or the last in banana. It's a weak sound, and I do not have time to describe the place of articulation. Okay, it's a mid-central sound anyhow. It comes from the center of the mouth, but I don't want to talk more about the place of articulation. This can be done in a phonology class, a pronunciation class. It is very common in spoken English. English vowels generally reduce to schwa or delete when they are not stressed. For example, the second and third vowels in the word laboratory. Okay, laboratory. 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 La, bo, ra, tre. 4 syllables according to my pronunciation. 4 syllables. And so if you look at laboratory, my pronunciation features compression, as I told you. What is the word laboratory? Okay. La. Okay. Now, what is the stress syllable in laboratory? You can decide based on my pronunciation. Laboratory. Quickly. The second.
The second?
The second. Laboratory. Laboratory. Okay. So the O, the vowel, the nucleus in the second syllable is clearly pronounced. Oh. But what about, look at the vowels in the other syllables. What happens to them? They either pronounced as a schwa or they are deleted altogether if you compress pronunciation. And so the vowel in the first syllable has become a schwa, like the first and last in America. Bo. It is not la bo. Okay, look at this at the third syllable. The vowel in the third syllable, which is also a, also has reduced to schwa. Labora. Labora. And the vowel in the last syllable, which is o, is deleted. Laborat re. Laborat re. Can you see that? It is not in my pronunciation, it's compressed. It's not there. Laboratory. This is different in American English. There are some differences. Laboratory in American English. The idea is that apart from the stressed syllable, the vowel in the stressed syllable, the other vowels, whether they are written A or O or U or E, they are, look at the word here, aeration in the chat. The second syllable is stressed. Ray. And so the first syllable and the last syllable, the vowels in the first and the last are reduced to schwa, aeration. America, aeration, 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 aeration. You can look up the meaning later on. And so the second and third vowels in the word laboratory, the second and third, the second, wait a minute. The second and third vowels in the word laboratory are reduced to ashwa. The second, wait a minute. The second, this is not correct here. The first, guys, are you following? This is the first, because the second is the labo is the stress one. So this should be the first. Are you following?
Yes, doctor, I understand.
So the first and third are reduced to schwa, the A and the A. And the last one is deleted, the O. Laboratory, like library, February. This is so because all these vowels are, unlike the second vowel, not stressed. We use the schwa to represent vowels and syllables that are not emphasized in speaking and whose duration is very short, such as general. The second and the third vowel, the second and third syllable. The first one is stressed, jan, but this one is deleted, jan, roll, and this is schwa. Can you see? About, schwa, reader, the second syllable, schwa, etc., etc. The schwa is pronounced. The schwa is pronounced with the mouth in a neutral position. This is the place of articulation, and is a brief, colorless vowel. The schwa is reserved for the vowel sound in all reduced syllables, even though its pronunciation may vary slightly according to its position in the word and who is speaking. There is more, as you can see, about this common sound, but this should be enough. I should skip the other slides, okay? But now you have a good idea of, you know, the concept of stress and the concept of syllable and the issues related to syllable to stress, such as, you know, the physical correlate to the stress, duration, loudness, and pitch, and the concept of the schwa. As I have said, the schwa can be written as, I mean, the letter can be A, E, I, O, U, Y, or it can even be deleted. I mean, maybe there is no vowel at all, as in the word rhythm itself. Rhythm, there is no vowel, but there is a schwa. So in terms of orthography or spelling, there are many variations. The vowels, you know, A, E, O, U, I, so they all become a schwa if they come in. So here it's, the letter is A, as in about or asleep. Here it's E, as in taken, the second syllable, or danger, second syllable. It could be I, as in pencil, the I in pencil, the second syllable, schwa. We represent the schwa, by the way, dictionaries represent the schwa. Can you see this? Can you see this symbol here? About?
Yes,
so it is represented in dictionaries this way. The schwa sound phonetically is represented this way. So the spelling can be O, but the again, so it is a schwa. Ala. And that's the last syllable also, the same thing. It can be U, it can be Y, etc., etc., etc. There is still another issue related to stress, and that is sentence stress. All what we have talked about so far was word stress. But there is also another type of stress, which is sentence stress, and which brings us closer to verse, because in verse we have sentences, words in a sentence. That's also another issue, known as a prosodic stress or accent. Sentence stress is the name given to the pattern of rhythmic beats contained within an intonational phrase. An accent, sentence stress, is a stress with pitch prominence within an intonational phrase. An accent is the placement of intonational pitch prominence on a word. Speakers choose to accent certain words or to de-accent others because of the particular meaning they wish to convey in a particular situation. Sentence stress is golden key number 2 for speaking and understanding English. What is golden key number 1? Stress. Golden key number 1 to speaking English is a stress. Golden key number 2 is word sentence stress. Word stress, key number 1, secret number 1. Secret 2, sentence stress. With sentence stress, some words in a sentence are stressed and other words are weak. Look at the following sentence. Do we say all the words with the same level of stress? No, we don't. We want to go. We want to go. Do we say every word with the same stress or force? No. We make the important words big and the unimportant words small. What are the important words in this sentence? Yes, you're right. Want and go. And so we say, we want to go. We want to go to work. We don't want to go to work. We don't want to go to work till at night. We don't want to go to work at night. We don't want to go to work at night. Can you see, guys? This creates rhythm. This creates a musicality. So in a sentence, we do not pronounce all the words the same. We want to go to work. Want, work are stressed. Other words are weak. We want to go to work. This creates the rhythmic beats, the rhythm, and so musicality in speech. We want, the voice goes up and then down, up and down, up and down. We want to go to work tonight. Can you see? And this idea is manipulated further in poetry. I mean, this is in casual speech. So in poetry, it is done deliberately also, not casually, using meters. Specific ways of arranging these rhythmic beats, stress syllables in lines of verse. There are different patterns in English. There are 4 main patterns: the iambic pattern or foot, the trochaic pattern or foot, the anapaestic pattern or foot, and the dactylic pattern or foot. We haven't yet touched about meter, but I couldn't talk about meter before talking about these issues. It was too expensive for them to buy. The words too, it was too expensive for them to buy, and buy are stressed. The words was, for, then, and to, all of them have the vowel schwa. It was like a schwa. Was too expensive for them to buy. Them to buy. Rhythm refers to a different length, weak versus strong, which the syllables of English are given. It is the more or less equal intervals of time among the stressed syllables. I am defining rhythm here. It is the more or less equal intervals of time among the stressed syllables in an utterance. The stressed syllables in an utterance tend to occur at more or less equal intervals of time, regardless of the number of unstressed weak syllables. I don't want now to get into the issue of the fact that English is a stress-timed language as opposed to French, which is syllable-timed language, and some other languages, because we've already run short of time. Otherwise, there is still more to talk about here. English say communication. You see, like weak, strong. Communication. Weak, then strong. Then weak, then strong. Then weak, then strong. Communication. This is English, stress-timed language. French is not like that, for example, or Arabic. French is known as a syllable-timed language, meaning each syllable has the same level of stress, not weak, strong. The same level of stress, syllable-timed. And so the word communication in English would be pronounced something like, in French, communication. Communication. Not weak, strong, weak, strong, weak, strong. Or strong, weak, strong, weak, strong, weak. The accelerando, rallentando effect. Accelerando, rallentando effect. I am not teaching you music, but this is important in music. I am a professor of English, not in music. So in English, in French, all the same. Communication. English, communication, 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 communication. Okay, let's skip now this. I've already done a lot. Let's now come to our class, and that is meter. So now we are starting our discussion of meter. Okay, now having introduced the notion of syllable and stress, let's talk about English meter, or the forms of English meter. If you go back here, metrical forms of English poetry. So we start our discussion with metrical verse, and we've defined it as verse in which the line's length is measured by counting syllables in pairs or triplets. And so we've said that in order to understand English meter, it is first necessary to understand the two aspects of English words that are controlled by meter, syllables and stress. And so metricality involves or depends on two aspects, the syllable and the stress. We've already talked about that, so now let's talk about the types of English foot, types of English meter. Are you with me, class?
Yes, doctor. Yes, doctor. Yep.
Meter. Meter refers to the abstract organization of stressed and unstressed syllables. Abstract organization of stressed and unstressed syllables in a line of verse, regulating the length and to some extent the rhythm of a line to create a musicality. So it is the manipulation, the arrangement, the organization of syllables into stressed and unstressed. The conscious organization. Meter refers to the abstract organization of stressed and unstressed syllables in a line of verse in a way that would create a musicality or rhythm. Meters are often named in terms of the type of foot they consist of. For example, iamb, sponti, trochee. Meters are often named in terms of the type of foot they consist of and how many of those feet there are. For example, iambic tetrameter, iambic pentameter, trochaic tetrameter. So there are two things involved in the definition of meter here. The type of meter and the number of feet. Let's define foot. Foot is a group. We're going to talk about types of English feet. If you look here again, kinds of metrical foot in English. Maybe we can copy this now down. Kinds of metrical foot. There are four main metrical foot in English. Let's define foot. Foot is a group of 2 or 3 syllables. It can be 2 or 3 syllables, pairs or triplets. One being stressed. Again, foot is a group of 2 or 3 syllables. One of these syllables is stressed, as we have seen in word stress and sentence stress. One is stressed, which we call the head of the foot. So the stressed syllable in a foot is known as the head. Remember that the head of a metrical foot is stressed, but that it sometimes need not be. So usually the head is stressed, but sometimes it can be left unstressed to keep the rhythm. So while the meter is rigid, the rhythm is flexible. One characteristic of being metrical is that the number of syllables in each line is controlled. But remember that there is permitted variation. Thus, an iambic tetrameter line, for example, normatively has 8 syllables. Iambic tetrameter. Tetrameter is a word that refers to the number of syllables. Tetrameter means the number of feet, 4 feet. And each foot can be made up of, we've said, 2 or 3 syllables. Iambic has to do with 3 syllable feet, 2 syllable feet. And so in iambic tetrameter we have 4 feet. In each foot we have 2 syllables, so we have 8 syllables. And an iambic pentameter, 5 syllables. 5 feet. In each foot there are 2 syllables, and so the total will be 10 syllables. Are you following or not yet? Let me see if there is something in the textbook here. Okay, look at page 209. 209. A meter is named after we said that a meter is named after 2 things. After the type of foot and the number of feet in the line. The type of foot meaning whether the foot has 2 syllables or 3 syllables, and how they are arranged. For example, stressed, unstressed, or unstressed, stressed. And these are the names for the numbers of feet. Dimeter, 2 feet. The foot we've said is the group of syllables, which can be 2 or 3, depending on the type of foot. The paragraph below: iambic, trochaic, anapaestic, dactylic. So these two. So there are 2 terms involved in every meter: the number of feet, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So dimeter, 2 feet. Trimeter, 3 feet. The foot we've said is the group of syllables. Tetrameter, 4 feet. Pentameter, 5 feet. Hexameter, 6 feet. Heptameter, 7 feet. The other aspect of the meter is the type of foot. There are 4 main kinds of foot in English: 2 binary and 2 ternary. 2 binary means only 2 syllables, because when we've defined the foot, we've said it could be a group of 2 or 3 syllables. So 2 syllables, binary, either stressed, unstressed, or unstressed, stressed. Ternary, 3 syllables in the foot. For example, unstressed, unstressed, stressed, or stressed, unstressed, unstressed. I use the word stressed and unstressed. You could think of this as strong or weak also. Weak, strong, weak, strong, or strong, weak. Let's look at the 4 main types of foot or patterns of metrical feet in English. We have the iamb, trochee, anapaest, and dactyl or dactyl. The iambic foot, the iambic foot is made up of, these are, okay, let's look at the slides again. Remember the definition of the foot, a group of 2 or 3 syllables. The stressed one is known as the head. We've said that there are 4 types of metrical foot in English. 2 binary, the foot is made up of two syllables, and ternary feet, where the foot is made up of 3 feet. The binary feet are the iambic foot and the trochaic foot. The iambic foot is made up of, okay, I mean these are iambic, these are binary, so 2 syllables in the foot. 2 syllables. The final is the head. You understand what this means? So the final syllable is the stressed one, the head. And so it is weak, strong, or unstressed, stressed. Excuse me. Look, for example, on page 208. Look at the lines of verse on page 208. The rain is raining all around. The rain is raining all around. So this is iambic. Iambic meaning there are 2 syllables in the foot, and the second syllable is the stressed one. So the first foot, the rain, 2 syllables, the and rain. The second one is the stressed one. We say the rain, weak, strong. And then the second syllable, the second foot is rain. The stressed one is rain. So the rain is rain. And then ing, all, the third foot. Ing is weak, all is strong, because we've said the second syllable in the foot is the head, the stressed one. And then the last foot is around. Again, weak, strong. Around. Unstressed, stressed. And so in this line of verse, this is iambic tetrameter. There are 4 feet, and they are arranged in the iambic, meaning weak, strong, weak, strong, weak, strong. This creates the musicality. So the rain is raining all around. The rain is raining all around. The rain is raining all around. Can you see? The other type of binary feet is the trochaic foot. So again, a foot made up of 2 syllables. Here it's the reverse. In iambic foot we have the final syllable is the head. In the trochaic foot, the initial syllable is the head. And so it is the other way around. For example, look at page Look at page 212. 212. Look at the 3 lines of verse at the bottom of the page. In the first line, I cannot This is iambic. Iambic. Iambic what? Let me see. 2, 2, 2. Iambic. Wait. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Iambic pentameter. I cannot. Iambic strong, weak. Weak, strong. But if you look at the next two lines, the first syllable is stressed in each line. Live to, greatly. So this is a trochaic, strong, weak. I mean, this poem is meant to be iambic. Actually, the whole poem is meant to be iambic pentameter, and these are variations, like exceptions. The point I am making is that in the trochaic foot, the initial syllable is the head, meaning strong, weak, or stressed, unstressed. In iambic, it's the other way around: unstressed, stressed. Okay, move on. Now let's look at the ternary feet. Ternary, in the foot there are 3 syllables. There are 2 metrical forms here: the anapaestic foot, and the dactylic foot. Here we have 3 syllables. Final is head. Excuse me, look at me. The anapaest. How many syllables are in anapaest? Anapaest. How many?
3.
Which one is stressed? Listen to me. Anapaest. Anapaest.
The third one?
The third one. Anapaest. And so, in the anapaestic foot, we have 3 syllables. The last one is the head, meaning unstressed, unstressed, stressed. Anapaest. Okay, we've said that usually the unstressed vowel. Okay, let me not get into this. And so the last one is the stressed one. Anapaest. So unstressed, unstressed, stressed. This is the anapaest. So you, in a line of verse using the anapaestic foot, you will see you'll begin with a syllable that is not stressed, and then a syllable that is not stressed, and then a syllable that is stressed, and then you move on: unstressed, unstressed, stressed. Like 1, 1, 2. Again, 1, 1, 2. Like that. Iambic foot. 1, 2. 1, 2. 1, 2. Trochaic. 1, 2. 1, 2. 1, 2. Anapaestic foot. 1, 1, 2. 1, 1, 2. The last type of foot is the dactylic. The dactylic is the opposite of the anapaestic. The head is initial, not final. Anapaestic, 1, 1, 2. Or unstressed, unstressed, stressed. In the dactylic foot, the head is initial. And so, 1, 2, 2. Anapaestic, 1, 1, 2. Dactylic, 1, 2, 2. Do you follow? So dactylic foot, 3 syllables, initial is head. These are the characteristic rhythms corresponding to each type of meter. So 1 2 1 2 1 2, this is the iambic. In other words, weak, strong, weak, strong, weak, strong, weak, strong, etc., etc. How many of these weak, strong depends on whether it's dimeter, trimeter, tetrameter, pentameter, hexameter, heptameter, etc., etc., etc. The number of feet in a line of verse. The next pattern or meter is the trochaic, where the head is the initial syllable. 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2, etc., etc. Trochaic. Anapaestic, we've said 3 syllables. 3 feet, which means 6 syllables, because the foot is 2 or 3 syllables. 3 syllables, the initial is the head, and so the final is the head. Yeah, and so 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3. You can tap your desk. 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3. So these beats, these rhythmic beats, make the metrical verse, and so the musicality. So the line is measured by the number of syllables and the rhythm, whether it is iambic or trochaic or spondaic or anapaestic. Okay. The fourth main English foot is the dactylic. So the dactylic, we've said again 3 feet. The stressed one is the initial syllable, and so the head is the initial syllable. And so here you have 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3, etc., etc. Okay, having said this, now pay attention to 2 more meters, or even 3. 2. The main ones are the ones I have talked about: the iambic, unstressed, stressed; the trochaic, stressed, unstressed; the anapaestic, unstressed, unstressed, stressed; the dactylic, stressed, unstressed, unstressed. Now there are 2 mutant like exceptions, 2 mutant meters. They do not work in English, and that's why they have to be used as substitutions, as variations within the types of meters we have discussed. They cannot make a poem on their own. They have to be used, they can be used as substitutions or variations within the iamb, anapaest, trochee, and dactyl. And these are the spondee, and the pyrrhic, the spondaic foot and the pyrrhic foot. There are 2 types of mutant foot that are found in English verse only as substitutions, meaning they can be part, as variations, part of one of the 4 meters we have discussed, but they cannot make a line of verse on their own. These are the spondaic foot and the pyrrhic foot. The spondaic foot, both are binary, meaning 2 feet. Both are binary, meaning there are 2 syllables. 4 syllables. 2 feet. Each foot has 2. In the spondaic foot, there are 2 heads, 2 successively syllables with approximately equal stresses. So the spondaic foot, you don't have weak, strong, or strong, weak. Both are strong. As in the name of the meter. Excuse me, pronounce this word, or let me pronounce it, and you tell me which syllable is stressed. Spondy. Spondy. Which one is stronger?
The first.
Again, spondy. Actually, they are the same. They receive the same level of stress, like in French. Communication. And since English is stress timed language, not syllable timed, as I said, you need to have weak, strong, or strong, weak. Spondy, both are pronounced with the same level of stress, meaning 2 syllables are stressed successively. This is not common in English, and so it cannot be a meter on its own. It has to be part of another meter as a substitution, as variation. Okay, I will give you an example. Look at page 212. Look at the line of verse on page 212. Can you read it, Siti? Can you read this line?
I know which one is it. The first
Okay,
one?
the first one, it is the same. The first one on page 212.
I nature's walks should holy as it flies.
This line is in iambic pentameter. In iambic pentameter. Meaning it is weak, strong, weak, strong. 1, 2, 1, 2. But if you look at the first foot, in the line, you find that the first foot, the syllables in the first foot, the 2 syllables, both are stressed. As you can see in the underlining. I, nature. I is stressed and nature is stressed. So this is the spondaic meter. I, nature. I, nature. It is not I, nature, or I, nature. No, both are stressed. I, nature. This line is meant to be iambic pentameter, iambic. And so, though the first word is stressed, a stressed word, I, as a word, is stressed. But in order to create the rhythm created by the iambic meter, then we should not, when we read this line, stress I. We should weaken I and say I, nature. Not I, nature. I, nature. Okay, spondy. Let's look at the other mutant. And so, excuse me, in this very line of verse we have just mentioned, this is meant to be iambic pentameter. Iambic, weak, strong. But as we can see when we analyze this line, we see that the word I comes in a strong or in a stressed syllable position. It is the head. It comes as a head, and so it should be stressed. But since this is iambic line, then when we read it, we should read it as iambic, meaning weak. and so we should pronounce it weaker than the second syllable, like I nature, not I nature, spondy, syllable, stressed. Should be like weak. So this is like variation, because sometimes it is difficult to get, when you write a line of verse, sometimes it is difficult to get, the same pattern that you are following, like weak, strong, weak, strong, weak, strong, or strong, weak, strong, weak, strong, weak, strong, weak, or unless you want to write poetry that is meaningless, has no meaning, because you go only with the beats, with the rhythm. And so sometimes it is not easy, and that's why there is permitted variation. You can use other beats, other pattern, but still, if you are using iambic, then the poem will still be iambic. If you are using trochaic, then the poem will be trochaic. Like as we have seen, if you look at the lines of verse at the bottom of this page, 212, beginning, I cannot rest from a travel, I will drink. This is again iambic pentameter, which means a strong weak. I can not rest from a travel, I will drink. But if you look at the next two lines, beginning with life and greatly, they do not begin with weak or unstressed syllables. The head is the first, because life is stressed, but it should not be read as stressed, to follow the rhythmic pattern of the iamb. I am, I weak, am strong. I am. Sharmila, are you with me? So sometimes it is not possible to get, the meter is rigid. The meter is rigid, but we can change the rhythm. So the point here, we should not change the meter, we change the rhythm. The rhythm when we read. The other mutant foot is the pyrrhic. Pyrrhic is a foot with no heads. The spondy, we've said, the spondy has two heads, two successive syllables with approximately equal stresses. In pyrrhic foot, two feet with no heads, two successive syllables with approximately equal light stresses. As in the word pyrrhic itself, pyrrhic. Both are weak. Both are weak. Again, to have a line of verse made of weak, this is not possible in English. Because we've said that English has the pattern of weak, strong, or strong, weak, strong, weak, or sometimes weak, strong, or strong, weak, strong, weak. The four meters we have discussed. And so the spondaic meter and the pyrrhic meter can only be used as substitutions or variations. There's one also more metrical foot, kind of metrical foot, and that is the amphibrach. The three syllables, like amphibrach, three syllables. Amphibrach, middle is head. Amphibrach, meaning weak, strong, weak. Weak, strong, weak. But these are not common in English. The most common metrical foot is the iambic actually in English. Is the iambic. Like I love, I, weak, love, you, too, or I love you strongly. For example, I, weak, love, strong, you, weak, strongly, weak. So English is rhythmically goes with the iambic more than any other meter. All right. We've already talked about permitted variation. So these are the meters in English. Within them, we've already seen the room for variation. Having said that, it should be noted that there are different possibilities of variation. There are three variations here we might talk about: catalexis and extrametricality, and there is also one more, and that is the loose iambic. Catalexis, having one or two missing syllables at the end of a line, a phenomenon called catalexis. Excuse me. Let's take the iambic pentameter, for example, since it's the most common. Let's say that you are reading a poem written in iambic pentameter, meaning that in each line there are 5 feet, 10 syllables, 5 feet, and they follow the rhythm of the iamb: weak, strong, or unstressed, stressed, unstressed, stressed. As in, shall I compare thee to a summer's day, the sonnet you have discussed today? Shall I, weak, strong, compare, weak, strong, compare, compare thee to. Now, shall I compare thee? Now two should be strong, but two is not a word that is stressed, but we might stress it just to create the rhythm of the iambic. But in the line of verse, it is not a head. And so, as we have said, the head should be stressed, but not all the time. Sometimes you may find a word that is not the head but is stressed, or a word that is the head but not stressed. So we can change, we can play with the rhythm, but we cannot play with the meter. The meter is rigid. The rhythm is flexible. But this is not the issue I was about to talk about. Catalexis. Catalexis is when you have one line of verse with a syllable or two being missed or short. So in an iambic pentameter line of verse, for example, you should have, we've said, 5 feet, meaning 10 syllables. But it's possible to have 9 syllables. 9 syllables in one line of verse. And so one syllable will be missed or shortfall of one syllable. So this is possible. If you count, okay, so there are really examples, but because I am under pressure now because of the time. So one way for variation is to have a line of verse with one or more syllables less. Catalexis. Another variation is to have the opposite of catalexis, is to have more syllables. So having extra syllables, not missing syllables, called extra metrical syllables in the line, which do not, so you could have more in a line of verse, in 1 or 2 lines, more syllables. But these do not count for metrical purposes. So they do not change the meter. So if the meter is iamb, it will remain iamb. If the meter is trochaic, trochee, it will remain trochee. If the meter is anapaestic, it will remain anapaestic. So having one syllable or two extra in 1 or 2 lines will not change the prevailing meter. So we do not count them. Extrametricality is fairly common in iambic verse. And so in iambic verse, just as catalexis is common to have 1 syllable less, 9 syllables instead of 10, you could have 11 syllables. And so one will be extrametricality. So there is a room for variation then. If you look, on page 213, look at the lines of verse on the page. With fingers light, the lingering breezes quiver. Now this is again, this is iambic verse. So let's count the syllables and see how many feet there are. Okay, in fingers there are 2 syllables, and with 1 syllable 3, light 4, the 5, lingering can have 2 or 3 syllables. Can be lingering, compressed, or lingering, alternative pronunciation. Let's count both and see. Let's say 3 syllables in lingering. So lingering 3 syllables, the 4, light 5, fingers 2, so 7, with 8, breezes 10, quiver 2, so 6, so there are 6 feet. So this is iambic. Iambic, there should be 5 feet. Iambic pentameter, 5 feet. Because this is iambic pentameter, not hexameter. Because if you look at the next line, read the next line. How many feet? River, 1 foot. 2 syllables. River. Deep still, another 1. Okay, let's begin from the beginning. Over, 1 foot. The glow, another foot. Wing of, 3rd foot. The still 4, deep river 5, deep river 5. So there is an extra syllable, and in the first line, if we compress lingering, there is also 1 extra syllable. If we do not shorten lingering, there is an extra foot, 2 syllables. And so, okay, let's look at the next. So in the first line, there could be 1 or 2 syllables extra. In the second line, there is 1 syllable extra. Let's look at the third line. Whose war 1, ter sings 2, among 3, the reeds 4, and smiles 5. So this is really 5. And most of the lines will be 5, but you could have, as we have seen in the first and second lines, you could have 1 or 2 extra syllables, so extra metrical syllables, but they do not count when it comes to the meter. In the second line, there is 1 extra metrical syllable. And in the first line, there could be 1 or 2 extra metrical syllables depending on whether glittering is pronounced as 3 syllables or 2 syllables, depending on compression. The compression, depending on the compression of lingering. And so extrametricality is fairly common in is a variation permitted in verse, and it is highly or fairly common especially in the iambic meter. One last variation, so there are 3 variations which actually amounts to a new like a new type of foot. Another way of adding extra syllables is that of the loose iambic meter, also known as iambic anapaestic, or if you use the blend I have made, iampiest meter, whose characteristic rhythm would vary between 1-2 and 1-2-3. Okay, what does this last thing mean? I am about to finish the class. Please bear with me. I knew that this would be a headache for me. Where are we? One variation, in addition to catalexis, 1 or 2 syllables missing, or extrametricality, 1 or 2 syllables extra in a line of verse. There's also one excuse me, give me a minute to ask the family to keep it quiet. Okay, where are we? Where are we? The loose iamb. It is not iambic, it is loose iambic. This can be thought of as an extra or as another meter, a new meter, in addition to the 4 main ones and the 2 mutant or 3 mutant ones. The loose iamb, this will be discussed under the heading called in the book Rhythm, Meter and Foot Substitution. Instead of talking about foot substitution and saying that in the same line of verse there is more than 1 meter, which is a bad practice, like remember the mutant meter, the spondee, as in the line I nature we talked about on page 212, I nature's walks. We've said that this line is meant to be iambic pentameter, but if we look at I is stressed. So some people might say that, okay, in this line we have a mixture of spondee, we have a mixture of meters, like spondee, I nature, strong, and then the chur's walks, the second syllable in nature, weak, and then walks strong. This is iambic, fine. And then shoot fully. Shoot is a head, strong, but it should be weak, because walk is strong already, following the iambic meter. But it is strong here, so some might say, and fully, which should be weak, comes strong. Shoot fully, again spondee, then shoot for spondee, strong. And then li as both are weak. Pirik, pirik, li as, and then it flies, weak, strong, ayam. So instead of saying that there is what some critics or people say, foot substitution, what is better is to think of the meter as one, ayam, in this case iambic, and think of these as variations, and we play with the rhythm. As I said, we de-stress I, and we de-stress shoot, to make them, in tandem with the iambic pentameter, the iambic metrical foot. So this is one way to play with the rhythm. Instead of saying that there is more than 1 meter in a line of verse, better to stick to 1 meter. But the other way to look at it is to call it loose iambic, which is like some kind of a new meter developed in English. Loose iambic, or else alternatively can be called iambic anapistic. Iambic anapistic. Why it is called loose iambic? Because it is not strictly iambic, weak, strong, weak, strong, weak, strong, or 1 2 1 2 1 2, not strictly. Or why would we call it then an iambic anapistic? Because it follows this pattern: weak, weak, strong. You remember anapistic, weak, weak, strong. So it is an iambic anapistic because it has this pattern. Look at here. The rhythm varies between 1 2, which is iambic, and then 1 2 3, which is anapistic. Meaning you have unstressed syllable and then stressed, which is characteristic of iambic, and then unstressed, and then stressed, or weak, strong, and weak, weak, strong. So resulting in a new meter, iambic anapistic. So okay, to look at an example of the last thing I have mentioned, the loose iambic, a variation within the iambic meter. A variation within the iambic meter. Look at page 215. Okay, look at the line of verse, not the first paragraph, not the second line of verse in the page, on the page. Hey ho, says Rowley. Can you see this line? Towards the middle of the page. Hey ho, says Rowley. This is not strictly iambic. It is loose iambic, what we have called alternatively the iambic anapistic, which is weak, strong, and then weak, weak, strong. So a combination of iambic and anapistic. So Hey, weak, for example. Hey, weak. And then ho, strong. Hey ho. And then two weak syllables. Says, sorry. Wait a minute. Excuse me. Look at the next line. Hey ho, weak strong, iambic. Are you following? Hey,
Yes, doctor.
hey ho, weak strong. And then says and tani, says and weak strong, iambic. Also. Hey ho, weak strong, says weak and strong. Ta ni rowley. Ta weak ni weak row strong. So anapistic, iambic, anapistic. You have this rhythm of weak strong and weak strong, weak strong, and then weak strong. But there is another way of reading this line in terms of the rhythm. You could say hey, you could say hey ho, says notice that there is also an extra metrical syllable at the end of the line, because rhythm determines meter to some extent here. Different performances can give the line different metrical forms. Here are two alternatives for the last line. We prefer the first, but acknowledge the possibility of the other one. So in terms of performance, we can vary the rhythm to suit the prevailing meter. You can as we have said, you can say hey ho, and you can say hey ho, stressing both syllables, as in the mutant, for example, maybe the spondy, hey ho. Maybe this should be enough. One last thing I would like to mention. There are also various possibilities for rhythmic variation, what I am talking about now. Lines that are in the same meter can thus vary in length through catalexis and in rhythm. There's also the notion of foot substitution, as for example when an iambic line begins with a stressed unstressed sequence, a stressed unstressed iambic, and then moves into an anapistic, like unstressed pattern. This is also known as trochaic substitution. A stressed. No, sorry. This is not the. Let me read this again. There's also the notion of fourth substitution, as for example when an iambic line begins, because the iambic line is supposed to begin with unstressed stressed, but sometimes, as we have seen in some lines, as in life, that line that begins with life to the least, it begins with stressed and then unstressed, and this is trochaic. So iambic lines that have or that begin with the stressed unstressed might be called trochaic substitution. You are substituting the iambic pattern with a trochaic pattern. So this is also known as trochaic inversion. And so it's important then to realize, whether you want to write verse in English or analyze verse in English, that there is a room for variation, a wide room for variation. There should be one meter, but within this meter there could be variation, and we can change the performance, the reading, the recitation, to ensure the rhythm associated with the meter. The last thing is scansion. As students of English, you might be asked to scan lines of verse, and by scanning we mean to represent its metrical structure. So to scan a line of verse, meaning to represent its metrical structure, we do the following. First, we identify the syllables by using asterisks. You identify the syllables in a line of verse. How many? 5, 7, 8, 9, 10. You identify the syllables using asterisks or just an X under each syllable, or already define the syllable having a nucleus, a vowel, or a syllabic consonant. Having identified the syllables, you underline the stressed syllables. And all these examples are mentioned in the unit we are discussing. So you underline the stressed syllable. Having done that, third, we use brackets to group syllables into pairs or triplets. Pairs, depending on whether the meter is iambic or trochaic, pairs, or triplets, the other two meters, the spondaic and the dactylic. Depending on the organization of the stress, depending on whether we have weak strong or strong weak or weak weak strong. So in weak strong, if the pattern is weak strong, then this must be iambic, and so the foot must be 2 syllables. The second is the head. If it's a trochaic, if you see the pattern, strong weak, strong weak, strong weak, then this is trochaic. So you use the brackets. Notice the position of the position of the bracket. If it's iambic, the bracket should come at the end. For example, if you look at page please. Look at page 208. 208. Look at the lines of verse. You see the asterisk, and then another asterisk, and then the bracket. So this is the first foot, weak strong, and then another foot, weak strong, and then a bracket, and then another foot, the ing all, weak strong, and then the brackets, etc., etc. But if the line of verse is a trochaic, then the head comes at the beginning. The head is the first syllable. And so, look at page 210 to see the difference. 210, the lines, not the first poem. Look at the lines after that. that begin with the snow. Snow had fallen, snow and snow. This is trochaic. Strong, weak. Strong, weak. Snow had fallen. And so notice the asterisk, the bracket comes at the beginning of the foot. Can you see? The bracket at the beginning, not at the end. Compare it with the previous page. Flip the pages. So you put the bracket, you enclose the head, the strong beat. And if the pattern is weak, weak, strong, weak, weak, strong, then this is you need to group then you need to group the syllables into triplets. This will be anapistic meter. 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3. And if the pattern in terms of the organization of stress is strong, strong, weak, strong, weak, weak, then that is dactylic. The dactylic, 3 syllables, initial is head. Yeah, strong, weak, weak, strong, weak, weak. Then you group the syllables into 3. Each 3 will make up a foot, and you enclose. You put the bracket at the beginning, at the initial syllable, because it is the strong one. And in the anapistic, it is the other way around. You put the bracket at the end, meaning you have asterisk, 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 and then the bracket in anapistic. In dactylic, you have the bracket and then an asterisk, an asterisk, an asterisk, like that. Asterisks and the brackets indicate foot structure. Underlinings indicate the rhythm of the line. So underlining indicates the stressed syllables. The stressed syllables. Underlinings indicate the rhythm of the line. Using underlining. The last thing I want to say, we have said that the stressed syllable, which is the head, need not be stressed if it violates the meter. So like you remember the I nature, the line of visit begins with I nature. It's iambic. I is stressed, but since this is iambic, the rest of the verse, the rest of the lines, and even in the same line, weak, strong, strong. So we try not to stress it when we perform the poem, when we recite it. That's all about this unit. I have done my best. You have the slides, you have the unit. If you are interested, you can go through the slides and the unit again. And I think there shouldn't be any difficulty after this, journey into the forms of English metrical foot. I have never taught this before, by the way. This is the first time I am teaching it. Because I am a linguistics professor. I teach language, not literature. I know literature as a hobby. And I have written poetry and published poetry as a hobby. But I have never, because I don't teach literature. So this is the first time for me to teach this. to be honest. I've been teaching since 2004, but this is the first time I teach it. Because I teach linguistics, phonology, phonetics, syntax, morphology, language acquisition, semantics, pragmatics, discourse analysis, language and power, psycholinguistics, sociolinguistics, stylistics maybe to some extent, etc. etc. Any questions? All right.
No, doctor.
Hopefully you appreciate this discussion. We shall meet next week. Or
Thank you, doctor.
is it next week?
Thank you,
Tomorrow.
Doctor. Thank you,
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow, doctor.
Tomorrow.
Doctor.
Tomorrow. All right. If no questions, you can leave the class. Thank you for attending.
Thank you, doctor.
Thank you, doctor.
Yes.
Gila.